So, is it really true that every institution is inevitably subject to corruption? I'm Thomas Cox. I said inevitable in the last video, and I want to make sure that we're clear. I don't mean that every single institution will always and forever be quickly and permanently corrupted, but rather that the tendency is there. And that is because institutions work by handing power to the people who make up the institution: a judge, an inspector, an official, a worker. And then the people who rely on the institution rely on those individuals to use that entrusted power for the job of the institution and not to enrich themselves. But those individuals who have been entrusted cannot be watched every second. Nobody can. So there's a gap. What the person is supposed to do with their power and what anybody can check up on. There's an ancient saying, who will guard the guardians? This is a multi-thousand-year-old problem. It's just how these structures are built. And that gap between what a person has the power to do and what can be inspected and double-checked and audited, that's where corruption leaks in. The gap opens in two different ways. One has to do with judgment. If a particular judge wants to take a bribe, and if a particular person in the case wants to offer the bribe and nobody else finds out about it, it could happen. And the power of the judge to make the decision gives the judge the power to sell the decision. You can't give people judgment powers without the ability to misuse it. There's a second one. A building inspector, let's say, doesn't have judgment necessarily. There's very strict rules on how the wiring either meets code or doesn't meet code, and it's really not very arguable. But when a building inspector goes to a building, there's not going to be a second inspector behind them to double check their work. So an inspector could look at bad wiring, take some cash, and say that it passed. Now the rule was clear. There wasn't supposed to be any judgment involved. He just lied, and there's no one there to catch it. Even with perfect rules, we still depend on people to be honest because we can't recheck everything. And even if we could recheck everything, then maybe the recheckers get bribed too. So people are trusted but unwatched. Every institution has some scope for that kind of misuse of entrusted power. So why do people actually misuse entrusted power? Have a look at who wins and who loses. When somebody cheats, they get the whole reward, and the cost of that reward gets spread out across a bunch of other people. Imagine if you could steal a penny from 1 million people and stick it in your own pocket. That would be, what, $10,000. Wow, you'd got $10,000 worth of incentive to go steal that penny. What incentive do the 1 million people have to stop you? It's like, if it's effortful to stop you, if it's more than a penny's worth of effort to stop the theft. In other words, the interests are concentrated and the people being harmed are diffuse. The people who are committing the harm are not just concentrated, but they're also keenly aware of what's going on. It's clearly in their view. The people being harmed, it's being done behind their back, and it's very small, and their information about it may be delayed. So any institution that's big enough or old enough, somebody is eventually going to try to misuse their power. It's built into the structure of institutions that to function, they have to entrust power to people, that not everything can be double checked, and even if it could, can you trust the double checking? And so ultimately, the fallibility of humans means that institutions are also fallible. That doesn't mean we give up. In the next video, we'll look at ways to fix institutional corruption, how each of those fixes works and doesn't work, and then what we can do in our own time to improve the institutions that we rely on.